I just didn't want us to do a podcast tonight where it's like, this is Paul, this is Geeta, and this is Jeff. He's a aerospace technician.
Ooh.
He likes Netflix and rock climbing.
We need to wrap up this podcast immediately.
Because you guys didn't do it?
Yeah, that's right.
You want to come back up to my place? I have 2 men there ready to podcast.
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to their net. We just have to get more and more pucks to the net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net and
Pucks on net.
Well, that's the key. We got to get the puck on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Continue to put pucks on net and
it's just getting pucks on net.
Pucks on net and driving and making it a hard night on them.
Live on tape from Geeta's apartment, her palatial estate on the 23rd floor. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast. Doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats. That doesn't mean we're deniers. They're just boring to talk about.
Yeah, guys out there, please never whip out your phone on a date and be like, let's compare fantasy teams.
Wow. I haven't done fantasy sports in a long time.
It's basically Weinsteining at this point.
Geeta. If you're wondering, we're doing the podcast a little later tonight because Geeta had a Tinder date that went a little dully, and we'll leave it at that. It involved checking fantasy stats.
Is it a listener? Because we gotta be careful what we
I
say.
talk about the podcast a lot.
It's not like he's coming back.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
This is how he finds out. This is your own Stephanie 3 situation.
Listen to back episodes for context. Also, speaking of context, I listen to a ton of podcasts these days. We don't do introductions like we were doing last season.
Thank you. I was just thinking that.
Is it because we interrupt you?
I
Probably.
the way the show goes is I'm like throughout the day I'm like, okay, I can try and start with this. I want to say this, and then it's just this 60-minute. We can swear now clusterfuck where everybody's just trying to get their comments in. And
I usually just sit back.
Yeah, and so after like a few minutes, we're like, Jesus Christ, we've all been talking over Paul for so long, and then we're like, you had something to say about Shipachyov, right? You're like,
It's gone. The moment's gone.
So I always forget. There's so many things I forget to do on these shows because they're a cluster muck. So
Do you want to try?
Yeah, okay, I'll start. My name is Ryan Shapp. I'm the host. I generally my nickname is the Glue.
Nobody calls you that.
You
are the Glue, but nobody calls him that.
I don't have a nickname. I got Shap Top.
Morty? I called you Morty for a decade.
Yeah, well, that's who are you?
PMAC.
What's your real name?
Paul.
You got a last name?
We don't do last names on the. You have to go to our Twitter account.
We certainly don't want people going Paul Google Paul.
And Geeta?
I'm Geeta, and I subsist in a perpetual state of inebriation.
And Geeta, through reference to last week's 5 minutes are paying over on Patreon. And if you do want to support our show monetarily, throw us over a couple of bucks.
I'm not helping you with that. I still don't really get it.
I'll go back and listen to old episodes.
Night.
It really happened.
It was February 14th, many years ago.
It was the most unromantic.
February 14th. I'm always busy February 14th.
It was roughly a February 14th, and Ryan and I were trying to get into a Boston Bruins game. In the days where we, couldn't get into games.
Now we're living the high life. We're like,
When I said I was busy on February 14th, it's because I'm either working or at home watching sad movies.
It's because he's a sexy socialite.
Oh, yeah, let's go with that.
Oh, he's the busiest man on February 14th.
Oh.
February 15th. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, wherever you guys are.
It's okay, Paul. Dating's a full-time job for me, too.
Wherever you guys are, make sure you follow us on Twitter, PucksNetCA or PucksNetCa.
God!
Dave's not here this week. He's not in for his introduction. It is his birthday today.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Tweet Dave some love.
Yeah, he got a lot of Twitter love. It is his birthday, so we always, we always miss him. So one of us will have to come up.
Hardly on this podcast. We're just phasing him out. Bye, Dave.
Whoa.
Happy birthday.
And if you want to support the show monetarily, throw us a couple of bucks over at patreon.com/pucksonnet. You'll hear us do 5 minutes or paying, and that's a Patreon-only segment. And then we got a bonus episode of a Q&A episode coming up this month. And that being out of the way.
Ryan's been throwing all sorts of good ideas at me for fun extra episodes.
I threw it to Geeta, and she just sent me a shrug shoulder emoji.
Huh?
That's not me at all.
No,
I usually
you
go
didn't.
that. I go jazz hands all the time.
I'm more of a shrug emoji type of guy.
No, I'm super excited about whatever Patreon episode we've got coming up.
Or episodes.
Oh my! Again, this is my second full-time job.
You talk about using jazz hands, and I don't think anybody was using jazz hands last night, Saturday night, when Loui.
Oh my God, that game wouldn't end.
I don't know the last time I've seen a hockey game where the Canucks have given up 3 shorthanded goals. I've been a little
all in the last minute.
Yeah, just push. And
I texted you. I was like, "Why is this game still on?" You're like, "It's 5:15."
Yeah, they're coming right back.
Yeah.
I texted Ryan about 2 minutes into the game. What did I text you, Ryan?
You're like, this game's over. I'm going to the Cobalt. And me, I've been so busy as of late. I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm gonna watch this game. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna come up with some fantastic analysis for the podcast.
I chose not to PVR it. Was that a mistake?
No, that's probably one of the best decisions you've ever made, if you ask me.
Hey.
No, yeah, I crawled into bed and it still didn't end.
I almost felt like during the game, the referee punished the Canucks for being so dull and boring that they awarded a penalty shot to the Sharks when they had no reason to take one. Like did you see that last night?
It sure made the last 30 seconds exciting.
I mean, well, this is the only exciting part of the game. It's like, well, these fans need to go home happy. We got to give them something. We'll give them a penalty shot.
I mean, nothing penalty. Well, the game wasn't that bad. Like, the score wasn't that out of reach.
No, it was fine. And Jacob Markstrom was, he was. It looks like everything that Ryan Miller brought to the Canucks rubbed off on Jacob Markstrom, where he's like, I'm doing everything I can to keep us in this game. And
is he the official number 1?
I don't know. I mean,
it's hard to judge because he has started 7 in a row now. But Anders Nilsson is
on paternity leave.
Yeah, paternity leave. He's actually off the team roster because he's like
right.
There's legalities involved in that, so they had to take him off the website.
What do you? Oh, really?
Yeah, there's league rules where you can have a guy on leave like that, and I guess it impacts payroll and call-ups.
Okay.
So if you notice on the website, and a bunch of people are tweeting because that day they also called up Reed Boucher, I think, with some loopholes.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed it that morning but didn't think much of it. But apparently everyone was like, what's going on? It's like, no, it's just that's what you got to do. You got to do the NHL front office shuffle.
You read the CBA and the all those agreements, and you realize that there's room to work with. It's like a greasy accountant.
Yep. Greasy accountant.
But I think the
how is San Jose as a team?
They're
missing Patrick.
They're not in the playoffs yet. I think they're a couple points out. I mean, it's the middle of November.
I think they're tied in that bunch with the Canucks. That there's 6 or 7 teams as of recording tied for the bottom 3 or 4 spots in the West.
So you get an overtime loss, and you're all of a sudden you're in the wild card slot. But they are a persistently good team, and you watch that game, and it's like anytime the Canucks face a backup goalie, he has his coming out party on Hockey Night in Canada. It's a curse with this team. But no, the Sharks are very good.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
And they have somehow Patrick Marleau has left the fold, and they've been just fine. Yeah. The ageless wonder.
He was going to be leaving soon, one way or another. So they've been preparing for this for a while.
They've been preparing for it for about.
Does the bottom fallout is when Thornton leaves?
I don't even think so.
He's still ticking along all right. He'll probably play another couple of years, I figure, and he'll probably stay in San Jose. I think he likes it down there.
That's why they look so good, is because they've been in this no stress, beautiful, hockey climate where there's just they have nothing to worry about. There's no pressure.
Well, I've been to San Jose.
I know they got a great, small, dedicated fan base. You always bring this up, but at the end of the day, there's not 15 reporters at your stall for a Wednesday night game. There's 2.
I was going to say, it's probably a happy medium where you don't get complacent like you might in markets with more fair weather fans.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're not in Toronto or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marleau. What?
And that
he seems to be doing A-okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
he's an
Papa Marleau.
Yeah.
He But it's like that's why these guys they've had this. I don't know. It just seems like they've had this relaxed career.
Yeah.
And that, that's been their problem, but it's also been like a blessing when you see how Marleau can fit on that young as hell team and look incredible. He's already got 8 goals on the year. I was thinking about this a little while ago, and it's like this is the first time that Pat Marleau's ever played in a market where there's expectations, and
first time he's played anywhere.
He spent his entire career in San Jose.
Yeah, well, and then the Seattle Thunderbirds, the Kent Washington Press, they're merciful.
Merciful or merciless?
Sorry, merciless. I was thinking of a Metallica song. Shit.
The Seattle Times.
Is this going to run in the weekend edition? No, it's not important enough.
The online edition.
I don't even work for them. I just wanted to sneak back here and talk to you.
Actually, I think Marleau was playing there before the internet was invented.
You're laughing, but he was.
I know that.
The internet was.
Yeah, that's a '97 draft pick.
Before it was as mainstream. I was going to the library and like, what's Google?
America
we can
Online.
find articles on Patrick Marleau and microfiche.
I'm going to look up the Patrick Marleau on my Encarta encyclopedia.
Oh man, microfiche. That's fun. Flipping through. Just enhance.
For the record, in second year of university, I was still doing that.
Well, I mean, why were? Like, just because of specific stuff you were looking up, or was it?
Oh, yeah, like South America.
Oh, yeah.
They still
don't have the internet there.
South American history, yeah.
They still haven't digitized everything. I've been in Europe. I've looked at some microfiche, just because that's the type of thing I do when I'm on vacation. I'm very fun.
You're going on vacation tomorrow, so there's a fun adventure for us.
Let's go to the local library, see what kind of microfiche they got. Oh, it's about Patrick Marleau. Look at that.
Oh.
The other thing about this game last night, and it's not about the game, but just what's to come, is that Loui Eriksson is healthy again. Mm-hmm. And I will go on record every week and just say I cannot stand Loui Eriksson. I imagine he is a great human being.
Can he stand himself?
I think that he can stand his bank account. Yeah. Because I don't get it. I don't get what he is doing.
Right.
He is a player that has no. Did
he fuck up yesterday?
No,
Yeah.
But people were talking about like they almost were treating him with like baby steps. Like when Jake Virtanen came back, they were like, "Oh, he didn't. He had some opportunities. He was skating with the Sedins well." I'm like, "Yeah, he makes $6 million a year. He's a 10-year veteran. He should be doing that."
Right.
But it's almost like that they have kid gloves on for him, describing him because he is so. He doesn't have anything. He's got no jam. He's not doing anything.
Okay.
And it's just tough to watch.
Yeah.
Hey, he is just coming back from an injury, to be fair.
What injury?
Something. No, it was like a knee or it was a lower body because that's when Tanner Glass pushed him into the net. But like
they all have knee problems or whatever. All the guys that were out. Like,
everybody's the whole
6
bottom
weeks.
half.
Everybody's lower body.
But last year there was nothing there. Sure, there was a bad coach.
Yeah.
And yes, there's an opportunity for him to do well. And he only played about 3 games this year. And there's a new system.
Yeah.
But when you turn on the game and Scott Oak is saying, Jake Virtanen's out, Loui Eriksson's playing with Sedin, so they're going to be slower tonight. They're not going to be as fast as they usually are.
The Sedins?
No.
Or the Canucks in general?
The Canucks in general, but it's like taking Virtanen out and putting Loui Eriksson in is saying, well, they're going to be slower. So there's already a knock against him. He doesn't produce, so there's another knock. It's just like...
They got to play him because they pay him?
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And, one of the knocks, I mean, there's a lot of positives about the Sedins, but one of the knocks is, maybe sometimes they don't seem to want to win it that bad. They don't have that compete level. And
they would argue otherwise.
Of course, and they'll do it really quietly and sensibly and say, well, I understand that point. But
we're 37 years old.
Yeah. Well, I think we had we're a pretty good game.
Did you see 2011?
Yeah, we were great back then. But... there is that kind of mindset. And then you look at Loui Eriksson, who he signed a long-term deal with the Canucks.
They gave him money. That's the thing. It's not his fault he got huge dollars.
But he got a huge payday. So and it's almost like, does he want to win or does he want the paycheck? Because does he see himself winning?
If you're playing for a team that's not going anywhere, no offense, Canucks listening.
There's some problems before there's some things to develop before they go somewhere.
He's not the anchor or the albatross.
Yeah. But he's
now a part of that puzzle. He's not quite the fit that they want on this team.
Do you kind of start to question somebody's compete level or desire to win when they sign that sort of huge deal in Vancouver?
It's hard to judge what they really feel, isn't it?
It's just, of course it is, but these are the things you think about.
It's not, if somebody's offering you $6 million, you're signing from that, Ryan.
But I mean, if somebody's going to offer me $4.5 or $5 million to play in Tampa,
you're taking it.
I'm listen. From all my serious hockey experience, if I have a chance to make $6 million for 6 years over, I know I can't put myself in those shoes because there's a lot of money involved. There's taxes. There's all this. You only have so much time to make that much money. But I mean, if I'm putting my Loui Eriksson hat on, and if I have a chance to make $1 million less a year, if I make $6 million in total in Tampa or Chicago or LA, instead of making a little extra money in Vancouver where I'll pay more taxes,
right?
That defeats my point. But I'd want to go.
It evens up.
I want to play for a team that I can win a Stanley Cup in.
There's an interesting other factor, and I understand the winning aspect. The fact that they keep playing him with the Sedin brothers, they keep trying it repeatedly, and I know there's only so many slots he can fit into.
Right.
But I do think one of the selling points, not just the money, but the fact that he's buddies with these guys, and he's known them for years and years. And I think that was part of the draw where he wanted to come. And yes, he's not going to say no to the price point that they put on it. His agent probably put a little more on it to come to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then he was going, maybe he wasn't getting offers from teams he felt were really weak. Pittsburgh didn't want him.
And that's exactly it. It's maybe the money wasn't there anywhere else. So if this is where the money's coming, you're taking it, and now what? What are you going to do?
You sit back and you collect the paycheck, and you get to play with your pals, and you know that a top-line spot is yours every night.
It's disheartening, too, to lose night after night.
Yeah. And it's tough to watch. And you look at that's a role that Jake Virtanen got.
Yeah.
He earned it, and he's deserved it.
It's different. Louis has a contract and a place in this league. Jake still has to work for it. Jake has no guarantee that Louis does.
But you're saying that hard work does not mean is that spot.
No.
If you're getting that paycheck.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, that sucks.
Isn't this a great opportunity, though, for Jake? He's not settled with those old fogey. No. I still think the Sedins have some compete in them. But, yeah, you have to be careful who you put out with them. I don't think Loui Eriksson is the answer. I still kind of want to see Marcus Granlund with them. Mm-hmm. He has not experienced a lot of offensive success, and I think he has a lot to give. And his speed and defensive ability will help counter if the Sedins are down behind the opposing team net and someone has to hustle back to help play D. And he's also good at finding spots on the ice and finishing, or at least he was last season. So I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that this season. It seems like Eriksson may have an agreement to be there, and the coach likes putting Virtanen there because 5-on-5 the Sedins don't get a lot of shifts, and that's one of the main reasons Virtanen stuck around there, because he doesn't want him to have too many shifts.
So what did we just establish? That hard work essentially doesn't always guarantee you a job.
And that's Willie would be rolling over in his grave right now because all he cared about was that Michael Chaput hard work, that Linden Vey hard work. But anyway, if you
Linden Vey has a job somewhere.
He's in the KHL. He's the leading scorer.
And all the ketchup he can want.
He'll be the Vegas Golden Knight next year.
They're goats.
Who were you guys talking about? There's photos. Everyone's got a photo with Trevor Linden or something.
Kirk McLean.
Kirk McLean on Tinder and Bumble.
Yeah.
There was one the other day flipping through, not of Kirk McLean, but it was like 4 Canucks with the girl, and but it was an older one. So Linden Vey was there, Zach Cassian.
Oh gosh.
I can't remember who else was it, but I remember looking at that going like, huh, you could have. He was on the edge of the 4.
You could have cropped up Linden Vey.
Oh, that's mean. But yeah, no, he's tearing it up overseas.
Did you write to her and be like, so I see that you have this photo from 2012.
What
do you look like right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember which way I swiped on that.
Geeta will send me these photos, screenshots of Tinder or Bumble, and it's either of a giant of back tattoos or it's randomly of guys with Kirk McLean. And the frequency of both, it's almost 50-50. Like, for as many bad back tattoos, there's a lot.
Oh, yeah, some ginormous back tattoo super liked me.
Oh, well. Actually, you know what that is?
What?
If you switch between...
Yes.
Paul and I were talking about this.
Oh, yeah, you
Somebody jumping from Bumble to
Yes,
Tinder.
on one
yeah.
you swipe up. On Bumble you swipe up. On Tinder you swipe left or right only.
What do you mean? I didn't deserve that super like.
It might have been an accidental super like.
Shut up.
There's some girls I've been accidentally super liking as of late.
I feel like there's a lot of profiles that say, if I super liked you, it's a mistake and I never want to speak to you. So, of course, I super like back.
What do you think of this, huh?
I am not a super liker. There is no one worth super liking.
Pucks on Net listeners, if you're...
Sorry.
This is more dump and chase advice. Yeah, I've heard that scares girls off. Don't super like.
Yeah, for all you Pucks on Net listeners out there that come across Geeta on Tinder or Bumble, just don't go for the super like. And make sure you're over 5... How tall are you?
5'4".
Yeah, make sure you're taller than 5'4".
I'm on a streak of dating guys who only come up to my chin.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I'm not even I'm impressed.
But for the record, I don't put 6'3" and above on
Jockeys.
my
She's dating a lot of jockeys.
Hanging out down at the track.
Yeah, she's been down at Hastings Racecourse too much.
Testing
Ooh,
your luck.
he's cute. Oh, shit.
They look so tall when they're up on those horses. Adds like 3-4 feet.
Those noble steeds.
That guy must be 8-9 feet to shoot.
This makes me feel a lot happier after talking about Loui Eriksson, who I
Why, how tall is Loui Eriksson? I wouldn't recognize him on Tinder either. It'd
He-
be like, look at this Loui. He doesn't have an E at the end of his name.
look at this big dumb doofus with a big mop of hair. I bet you I couldn't even tell you.
Why does he tell me he makes this much money a year? I don't get it.
Give
that's
him
what he gets.
Give him a few months. Louis
like-
one.
Yeah, I'd be like, why is this guy posing with this Sedin?
What is this, a read for succeed event? Yeah, well, anyway.
Yeah, give him a few months. Don't necessarily leave him on the Sedin line, but
Yeah.
A friend of mine at work said he described when Loui Eriksson's on the ice, he's John Cena.
I don't know what that means.
In Daddy's Home.
What?
John Cena, that's his new movie out.
Is he in that? Oh, is that the movie with? Is that Louis C.K.'s movie?
No, it's the movie with with Will Ferrell and what's his face? Mark Wahlberg.
Well, no, but John Cena, you can't see him. That's his taunt.
So
And when
while
Louis-
Mark Wahlberg intimidates Will Ferrell, John Cena intimidates Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that has nothing to do with Loui Eriksson.
You were going somewhere. John Cena.
he said he was John Cena.
Yeah.
So Loui Eriksson will be in what's it called, Big Daddy's 3 or
But you
Daddy's
won't.
Home too.
Big Daddy's 3. I think that's a pay-per-view title.
That's a Netflix Adam Sandler sequel.
You're not getting Big Daddies on Netflix.
Welcome to Sunday podcasting.
Don't you remember that Big Daddy was that Adam Sandler movie with
Yes.
Jon Stewart?
Yeah, the first half is really good. The second half sucks.
Yeah.
I don't remember that
With
much
the little kid who's now in Riverdale.
Scuba Steve.
That's him.
Yeah.
Are there two of them?
There's
Is that
two
one?
of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
I don't know where you were going. Loui Eriksson, the
You
John
can't
Cena.
see him. You don't notice him when he's on the ice.
Oh, got it.
What?
I'm sure a lot of our demographic are wrestling fans, so they'll get it more than
exactly.
Geeta or I.
That's gonna sound great in post.
I gave Ryan a thumbs up.
Yeah, real emphasis on the thumbs up.
That's probably someone's taunt, I'm sure.
Oh, speaking of thumbs up and Don Cherry,
Yeah.
he there was some outrage in my hometown this week.
Where? Calgary or Abbotsford?
You shut your dirty mouth.
Wait, aren't you
Abbotsford.
claiming New West now, like Jake Vertanen?
Just the key.
Yeah. He, as he always does when a police officer dies, he mentioned the cop from Abbotsford.
Yeah.
But he said he stumbled. He said Abbotsford, Ontario.
Oh.
And so a handful of people on my Facebook that are from Abbotsford were like, "Mark, how disrespectful!" I'm like, he didn't mispronounce the police officer's name wrong or put the wrong photo up. He just mentioned, a town that nobody cares about.
Well, no, I don't want to go there.
On behalf of somebody who loves Don Cherry and Abbotsford, I was not offended. It was just funny to see this outrage. I'm like, he did a very nice thing.
Yeah, he always does. He acknowledges these
But,
things.
Don Cherry doesn't have a history of mispronouncing things.
No, he just got the geography wrong. That's all.
This is the first time ever he's ever mispronounced anything on Coach's Corner.
He didn't mispronounce anything. He got the geography wrong. He just said.
He called it on. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, Rhina.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was bad.
He prefers Ryan.
Rhina and Gaddy. That's my Don Cherry.
Rhina and Gaddy. You hear that Gaddy on the show, on the radio? She's got a couple beauty things to say, Ratty? Gaddy?
Just keep her out of the locker room.
He will pronounce my name properly because he and I share a love of Jason Spezza.
That's true.
Yeah.
Couple of thumbs up for Spets, who's on the block allegedly. But we don't know about that.
We're not talking about that ever?
No, well, they don't know what they're going to do with him, but it was just Elliot Friedman causing a ruckus. But Loui Eriksson for Jason Spezza, straight up.
Yeah, that's a decent.
Can you imagine if they could get away with that deal? It would settle. It would literally take care of all our problems.
Oh my God!
Did he leave?
It would take care of every problem I've ever had in my life ever.
Jason Spezza, Loui Eriksson, Jason Spezza not wearing blue.
Jason Spezza playing in Vancouver
every night. We're gonna need some
all
tickets.
our problems are suddenly gone.
Loui Eriksson, did he leave on good terms from the Stars?
Yeah, he went on.
Sure,
it wasn't about him. It was Sagan,
Big
right?
Ty Sagan.
Oh, Sagan didn't like him?
Yeah, Loui. That was the first time Jim Benning acquired Loui Eriksson because he traded for him in the Sagan deal, which is not very good. Another thing that that Jim Benning traded for was Erik Gudbranson.
Okay, and? There's
rumblings of what are they going to do with him because as they talk about Jim Benning's a great scout. He's a great surveyor of talent.
Yeah.
He did a great job.
Not a good GM.
For every Granlund or Sven Berchi or, what other deals has he made that have made pretty good?
You gotta warn me. Yeah.
Anders Nilsson.
Yeah.
Sure.
But for
Ryan Miller actually turned out to be pretty good.
Well, those
signing.
are when it comes to trades, for every Sven Berchi for a second or Granlund for Shinkarik, you have these. Brandon Sutter deals, and then Jared McCann and 2 picks, us including the second round, for Gudbranson and a 5th. And it's like people are starting to get a little worried. Like Erik Gudbranson, who maybe is being phased out of this newer, faster NHL, is still going to get a lot of money. He's going to get Loui Eriksson money.
I don't know about that, but it'll be more than he's worth.
Well, someone's going to make a mistake. And
somebody will overpay for him.
That's exactly it. Someone will.
And it's a matter of, do you want the Canucks to overpay for him? Or
is he working out here?
That's the thing. He's got some good qualities about him. There's things that I like.
If this was a good team on a great year...
If this was a cup contending team,
he would be Keith Ballard.
He would be that, and he would be praised for his intangibles and his grit and his locker room etiquette.
Keith Ballard wasn't.
He wasn't, but
I'm saying in 2011, Gudbranson would be the guy from Florida that everybody's like, why won't they give him a shot? And it's because, he's,
why won't they give him a shot?
He's an okay bottom pairing defenseman, but he's just not, blowing anybody else out of the lineup.
Yeah. But there's this fear. Go on, Geeta.
Oh, no, I was just going to further that point. It's not like anyone's blowing anybody else out of the water. No one's taking spots away from anybody else except for Eriksson over Vertanen. Sorry, Jakey.
There's holes that they're plugging.
Yeah.
So
it's not the same as I've outplayed you and displaced you.
Yeah.
There's not as much of that on D, especially, too. Yeah. Especially with Stetcher out of the lineup. We haven't seen Weirkoch. None of the kids on the farm apparently are ready to go. So, on D, he's what you got.
And if he's not, the analytic community does not care for him.
Okay.
Because I'm painting with broad strokes here, but they want every defenseman to be Erik Karlsson.
Okay.
And not every
are not a lot of
there's one or two
Erik Karlssons out there
with his robot ankle.
Yeah,
there's one or two.
Yeah.
If he can play a good stay-at-home defensive role like our beloved Willie Mitchell, doesn't screw up a lot, can get the puck out and have a forward-thinking mindset, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But we don't know if he's got that, if he's reliable enough, and maybe you don't want to spend that much money on him, and you don't know what you're getting in him because it's just, and it's in this weird spot where was it last year or the year before with Dan Hamhuis?
It's been 2 years?
Yeah, I think it was the year before. But they let him walk for nothing, and there were you're worried that he'll do that again with Erik Gudbranson because they're like, well, we do like this guy. Let's make something work. He is an RFA. That's the other scary thing. And then everybody's a little worried that he's going to leave for free or he's going to stay here and command a giant salary. And it's just we're in this nervous time. And Jim Benning has said that he's not going to make a decision until February.
Can anyone demand a giant salary from Vancouver? Is there anyone who can command that? No. Apart from like a Horvat?
Yeah.
All the kids coming up. So, yeah, when you have to deal...
Horvat's
re-signed already, but when you're dealing with...
unless you're hanging on to somebody like a Horvat or a Besser or someone like that, no one else is commanding anything. No one else has the upper hand on the team.
But then you're in this weird spot where if you go into negotiation saying like this Gudbranson's not going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
We got him.
Yeah.
And whether it's an offer sheet signed or you play hardball and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Then you're a little screwed and you lose him for nothing. But at the other
you have money to play with.
There's $14 million coming into cap space next year when the Sedins are off the books. What would you do,
or
Paul?
A discount.
What can we buy out of Russia?
We got a guy there named Nikita Trampkin.
I mean, there's sort of, if the Canucks are in the playoff picture and they don't have anybody else that's stepped up, they're going to hold on to Gudbranson even if, you run into issues in the summer.
Yeah.
If they're out of the playoff picture, it makes sense to deal them because you're going to get something, but then it's a question of will they accept less than value, like probably even less than what many people who are critics would think is equal value, because you're basically just send them off.
Let me ask you.
Get something rather than nothing.
Oh, I was going to say, and here's the thing. We're a month and a half into the season.
Yeah, so playoffs are right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, they're done for the season, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
They're ninth. Well,
no, and they're not, and that's the thing. March is still a long ways away.
But I mean, if we're talking about the Canucks, about what we've seen the last games against Detroit or the California road trip, they're not as good as these guys.
No, they're not, but it's also easy enough for them to go on a 5-game win streak very quickly and turn things around, and suddenly we're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Let's forget the Whitecaps ever played in the city.
Back-to-backer against Arizona, and we're right back into it.
And that's the truth, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is.
Careful with when you say we, because I've all along been like, guys, don't get too excited, and it's been week to week. Like,
Dave's not
everything
here.
is amazing.
Yeah, no,
they're the worst.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's too soon to go like the Canucks are completely out of it, and it's another thing to be like, oh my God, this team is they're cup bound.
Yeah. Just before we move on from Erik Gudbranson will be a good litmus test as to Benning and his team's ability to or how dedicated they are, I guess, to their investments. People overcommit when they've already put a certain amount into a project or something they believe in.
Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those opportunities where hey, you know what? We made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be able to say that and move on and cut their losses? Or are they going to be like, oh, we've already put so much, we got to hope one of these years that Erik Gudbranson becomes the defenseman we thought he could be.
Yeah.
Because that's the death of a lot of general managers. It's the ones who can't look from outside at what they've done in the past and move on even at a loss. They just commit to these guys because at one point in time they saw something.
Potential.
And the best GMs are usually the ones that can see things coming, or at least at a certain point cut their losses, move on to a different safer opportunity. And we've seen that with Benning, speaking of the Granlund trade, where he was just like, okay, I don't think Shinkarik's going to peak. Granlund's a safer pick. He's already proven more, and everyone was upset because he didn't have as high a ceiling as Shinkarik. But I like that deal.
I was going to say, that sounds like a fun podcast with a little bit of research. Who are these players you've managed to build a career at a potential? The Edmonton Oilers. No.
That would be fun.
If you were looking for a segue, there's your segue.
The Edmonton Oilers are terrible.
Yeah, back-to-back losses this weekend.
Yeah, that's always a bit
Let
of.
us remember last season.
Oh, that was a good time to be alive. Where some guy named Kajula was a point producer.
Oh.
You had to be worried when a guy's named Kajula or Letestu were on the ice. They were going to score goals on you. Some guy named Cam Talbot was the next goalie of the West, and now they're not.
Yeah. What's the missing piece?
There's a good question that came in from Twitter from Puckston listener and Patreon backer Allison Moore. She goes, because of how well they did last season, what do you guys think Edmonton's shortcomings are because they're not living up to the hype of the preseason?
Oh, Taylor Hall, obviously.
I kind of think that Jordan Eberle, even though he only had those 17 goals, he had 20, but we say that those came in the last game in garbage time.
Right.
If you spend the whole time, if the opposing team's top players are spending their whole efforts defending against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, which is a very good game plan, and they're successful. There isn't a lot on that Oilers team right now that's going to score you goals.
Okay. So what was going on last season, though?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if it's complacency, like because if they think that, we have Connor McDavid, we don't have to worry about anything because he'll score all the goals. Yeah. But I mean, if you have Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Patrick Maroon on your top line, that leaves guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Lucic and who else to score goals for you? Like they're in a tough situation. Like that team, that depth isn't there like it was last year.
Yeah, no, there's a bit of a drop-off after the top six. You're not seeing Zach Kassian step up in an offensive role like they were probably hoping.
I feel like that's the first time this year I'm hearing his name, and it's coming from Paul.
And when he was playing in the playoff, gearing up for the playoffs and the playoff run, like he was a very dominant player, and he was putting up points. And when I just kind of get the sense like.
You don't even need dominant guys. You just need guys that are like third-line quality players that are going to provide some support offense. Yeah. And they're not even getting that at the moment. And people were really excited about Kyler Yamamoto, who just got sent back down to the WHL. And they were like, oh, he's so good. And he was pretty good looking in the preseason, but we've seen that from junior kids. It wasn't so much that he was leaps and bounds ahead of where he should be development-wise. It was because there wasn't a lot of depth, especially offensive depth, in the Edmonton Oilers lineup, and they were giving him that shot. He could have played in the top six.
He's also tall enough. His height might not meet Geeta's Tinder requirements. I think he's like 5'5" or 5'6".
And they usually list guys 2 inches taller than they are.
So he's like 4'12". Oh. Just a real pipsqueak. But there was this sense last year where you could put anybody in the Oilers lineup, and because they were so hot and Connor McDavid was so unstoppable, it was like the McDavid dust just trickled down onto the second line, the third line, the fourth line, and the defense. And then now it's not there. And it kind of seems like they kind of said, okay, we'll just wait for the playoffs. It just seems like they have that get us to the playoffs mentality, but they're not winning games. They're not putting their foot forward. They're not putting their foot on the gas, and it's just like it's not good to watch.
And it's not necessarily even the problems up front because you do have those guys. I think a big part of the problem this year, you mentioned Cam Talbot not playing as well. Neither goaltender has posted amazing numbers. But a big part of that is the defense, and people have been critical of the Edmonton Oilers' defense for a long time. And even with him in the lineup, it's questionable, but they've been without Andre. I always mispronounce his name because there's a radio announcer in town with a similar last name, Sekera.
Yeah.
Okay.
However you want to say it.
Sekera and Price.
But he's out potentially, I heard January at the earliest, and that's a very optimistic outlook, and he's been out since before the season started, and he was a really key cornerstone on that blue line. And without that, you got Darnell Nurse is playing a lot of minutes right now,
but he's not that type of shutdown guy. They want him to be.
He's just being pushed to do more, and I think it's similar. Even we're seeing it with Ben Hutton in Vancouver. It's these young guys.
Oh, poor little Ben.
That should be probably third pairing guys working their way up into being top 4 guys in the NHL, but being forced to do too much.
They call that the Spiza effect.
Well, yeah, when young guys make mistakes and are being criticized by the fan base, being criticized by the media, and even if they're only getting bits and pieces of that, it can chip away at guys if they're not ready for it. And some guys, it doesn't bother them, but I mean, I don't think we can blame professional athletes when it does get to them, when you're a young guy under 25 and the weight of a city is pressing upon you. And I feel like,
especially in Edmonton right now, like the expectations are huge.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because last year they were destined for the Stanley Cup Finals, and then this year we thought everybody was picking them to win it.
Like, let's just plan that. Like,
so reality has set in. They weren't. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you've been rebuilding for 10 years. It's not that expectations are high. It's like, no, you were on track. You should have been where you were last year.
Yeah. And now what's going on?
Yeah, you're going backwards a little bit.
And you don't think that trading Jordan Eberle for a guy that's not working out would be that big of a game changer, but
it happens.
The good teams have that depth. Like, that's why Pittsburgh wins those Stanley Cups, because Phil Kessel's on the third line. And if you have Eberle that isn't required to score 30 goals, then he becomes that much more, impactful. Like all the pressure's on him, he can really produce in that minimal role. He just getting up.
Geeta's just walked out mid-podcast.
Yeah, that's it. She's a big Oilers gal. What else we got here? I don't know. I don't think my bold prediction is the Oilers won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's too early to tell. I know that's kind of a cop-out. They could still. Connor McDavid is on that team, and Leon Draisaitl, and those are the type of guys, it doesn't take a whole lot. They might make some moves, and who knows,
Panic
move
moves.
A couple bodies out, you move a couple bodies in.
That seems like a team that would trade a lot for Erik Gudbranson in February.
Depending on where they are in the playoff picture,
it's if they're pushing, they would love to have a guy like that.
But I guess you look at an Edmonton situation, you can see why there's value placed by management on a guy like Gudbranson, where he's not a perfect defenseman, but you go, well, he's a capable NHL defense. He's probably better than Alex Biega, although I know a lot of people would argue with that. But yeah, it's one of those where it's like, okay, well, to get 6 guys that are like NHL caliber, even if you've got 3 or 4 that are like should be bottom pairing guys in the NHL, general managers are loath to let guys like that go because defensemen are not easy to come by.
And one that maybe isn't going to be your Erik Karlsson, but yeah, if Erik Gudbranson can come in and provide that presence and that leadership role and that toughness and that shutdown role, like, they're going to overvalue that. Like, if he can come in and be reliable.
Where are you dispatching him to?
Edmonton. He's going to Edmonton. And Chris Tanev's going to Toronto.
Oh, great. Then we just cleared up 2 spots on Vancouver's roster.
Yeah, Biega is playing every night, and Jake Virtanen's playing defense. So we have about that's about $60 million in cap space, give or take. We just cleaned up for next year. John Tavares, here he comes. We're talking about Russians earlier, and Lyndon Vey being the leader of the leading scorer of the KHL.
Is he still at the top?
He probably
Are we
is.
talking about the guy that just retired this week?
Yeah, retired.
Is that retired?
Retired.
Is he just going to the Olympics?
Yeah. He's retired, but Vegas has his...
We're doing this entire segment in air quotes for listeners.
The air quotes episode. Vegas owns Shipachyov's rights until he's 35, so he's retired.
He's about 21.
It's similar to the...
No, he's older than that. He's pushing 30, I believe.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, similar to the situation with the Devils and Ilya Kovalchuk, although not because Shipachyov... Well, I shouldn't make fun of him. I think we actually do have a highlight reel. Do you have that queued up, Ryan?
Yeah, this is...
No, he had an illustrious career.
Yeah.
We shouldn't make fun.
Yeah, so and he was a player that was highly touted and scouted and was pursued for years, but he was locked in a contract.
And he signed a contract of Bellagio chips.
He's a regular Yuri Depita.
Yeah. So we put together, because we're all such big Golden Knights and Shipachyov fans, I put together this little, This Is Your Life, a celebration of his career in the NHL. You know, like when you hear Trevor Linden, it's got.
Are you gonna play Green Day?
No. We'll give you that idea.
For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
On the rebound, Shipachyov gets his first NHL goal, and it's 2-0 Vegas.
Let's talk about the Golden Knights. They're allowing Shipachyov to seek a trade. What's the latest from the desert?
The Vegas Golden Knights, Vadim Shipachyov, no longer a member of the team. Voluntary retirement is the official paperwork term that's used. Bottom line is, he was a Knight, and he will not be anymore.
Unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Paul.
He played his entire career in the desert.
Yeah, he is.
I feel like it's a bit of a mirage.
To dedicate yourself to a new NHL franchise like that for your entire career says something about the gumption of this young man.
He's like Shane Doan. There's an upstart team in the desert. He's sticking here. He likes
There's the Knights. There's Shipachyov. There's the Knight. And then he fell on the table and broke it and got shipped back to Russia for a replacement.
Good God, I'm feeling like Ryan Smith over here.
Geeta's getting a little misty-eyed.
Oh, my.
The show's getting emotional.
I hardly knew him. He hasn't even played in Vancouver yet.
Yeah, the Knights are coming to town this week. I was really looking forward to seeing Shipachyov, but I'll have to settle for Lucas Pisa.
All right. Is there a tribute video?
Is there a what?
Is there a tribute video to Lucas Pisa?
Jeez.
I liked Lucas Pisa. He was one of my favorite guys to talk to in the room.
I feel
say
like
what
he
you will
had
about
a great sense of humor.
Yeah,
he was a really just funny, nice dude.
Yeah.
And he was a good teammate, too. And there was, and he was like, him and Ryan Miller, they became almost the goons, and they were standing up for their players when they had to.
I feel like here's the thing. We appreciate him a lot more now that he's gone.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
It's like a reverse Corey Schneider situation where it's like, let's just pretend he doesn't exist. He's in New Jersey. We see him twice a year.
He was the one that got away.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, geez, if we'd only done things differently back then, I tell you.
We were young.
we didn't know what we were doing. We just
he had a back tattoo.
Kept going back to that abusive Luongo relationship. It's just long term. We've got that foundation. Yeah. Things just work. We know each other.
The Aquilinis and Italians, I tell you.
The fourth time is the charm, as I said to Ryan this week.
Shipachyov finishes 3 games played with a goal and a +3.
Those +3, I mean, geez, putting Sidney Crosby to shame there. The most important stat in professional hockey, the plus-minus.
Yeah.
Just like goals against average for goaltenders. Those stats,
individual based.
Don't get me started.
I thought off the top you said no stats. No fancy stats.
Oh, those are the least fancy that you can get.
Oh, the analytics, the fancy stats, they laugh and scoff at the plus-minus.
As they probably should.
You know what? I like the stat. I think it's just interesting to know who's on the ice for a lot of goals against. Yeah. But it's not your. Sidney, the best player in the world's a -14, give or take. So what does that say about him?
Yeah.
It says he plays a lot of other good players.
Plus 50 goals, but here I am, -14.
Shipachyov had a rough translation. He goes, the promises which I was given in America.
What do you mean? His English to Russian dictionary was...
I'm going to blame this on whoever... Google Translate.
Transition, I think he was.
Oh, not translate.
Tough transition to the NHL?
Well, there was a tough transition, and he talked about that in a poorly translated article.
There you go.
Thank you.
The promises which I was given in America didn't come off. Now,
where have we heard that before? Sorry.
Now I know that Russian players should think 10 times before leaving for abroad. It's different from what clubs and agents tell you.
Ketchups are readily available.
Yeah, so they said, come get all the ketchup you want here in Vegas.
Never leave Russia for a broad. Good advice. Sorry. This is dumb. This is so dumb.
Take it from Paul.
I've been there.
Don't go anywhere.
Oh, wait, no, that was to Russia. Supposed to be mailed, but apparently they didn't put enough stamps on it. And I had to go pick her up.
Inflatable.
It was just depressing on so many levels.
But still abroad. McPhee went on to bury him, saying he wasn't good enough. He was the worst center on the team and didn't want to work on his game in the AHL. So there's some mudslinging going on.
I kind of side with the team in that when you come over from overseas, even if you have been an accomplished player, you might need to do some adjusting.
What's jet lag, Paul?
It takes a long time to get over that jet lag to Vegas, at least 3 to 4 years.
And the Canucks let Trampkin kind of run, what he wanted to do when he came over, but it was the same thing. If he had done half a year and then started destroying everyone else in the AHL, you come up to the NHL that much more ready, like they're trying to do.
But he was real mellow.
I don't blame Trampkin for saying I'm not going to the AHL based on who his head coach was at the time.
Fair enough.
That's very.
Now let's not name names.
Okay.
We'll just call him Willie D. No, that's confusing. We'll call him W. Desjardins.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rhymes with Schmilly Schmejardin, and there was this great Stu and somebody on 1040 did a great interview with Chris Higgins, who's now contributing, and he was asking him about how Willie played his lines.
Yeah.
And it was just like no matter what was the score, what the game was like, it was just one line after another. And Stu's like, does that change the body language? Does that have you kind of hang in your head like it's not, you're not really feeling it anymore? And Chris Higgins, without saying indirectly, said absolutely
Though
yes.
I hate talking about this stuff, this is how I'm playing my fantasy team. I'm just rolling with it. I've got real Willie D mentality right now.
We're just putting him out there.
If we're talking about Willie, can I tell the story we were talking about telling a couple episodes back, but on my terms, Ryan?
Oh, yeah, that was all edited out.
Yeah, I know.
I felt really bad.
No.
This entire podcast is on Paul's terms. It's fine print.
I just want to reveal things like this, sort of like leaving certain facts out. So just, I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast. I told a few of you guys. It's been a little while now, but when Willie was coaching the Canucks, there was a game where the next coach that he would be facing was already in town, watched the game, was sitting nearby. I knew the fellow sitting next to him and the brass from the other organization. And apparently the whole game, this other coach and his compatriots were just mocking Willie Desjardins. And
did you say Patriots or Bill Belichick?
It was, Geeta, he's trying to read between the lines here.
But basically another coach in the NHL was sort of laughing at Willie and just sort of saying he's still coaching like a junior. He's not matching lines.
Yeah.
He's not really doing anything except for like picking the lines and then rolling them and just going. And there was no deployment strategy. There was no anything beyond the very basic aspects of coaching. And I know there's more there. Willie's not a bad guy, but he was probably in a little over his head in his first job.
What I gather is that Willie was a good teacher.
Should have been a good assistant coach.
Coach.
Yeah, okay.
And it's kind of like what's happening with Jim Benning. Where
he's a good assistant GM?
His contract is coming up, and he's a great surveyor of talent. But is he a great general manager? And it's like...
What is his previous GMing?
Assistant GM in Buffalo. Buffalo, Boston Bruins.
He's never been the GM.
Yeah, he was given the keys here, and...
I think he was the head scout in Buffalo.
Yeah, and so...
Worked his way up.
Okay.
And I tell you one thing. If there was a guy that came into Vancouver to be his GM, and you had just said, Jim, here's your job.
Yeah.
Go find me great players, which he has done.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's up in the air of what a job he's done as a GM, but that could be something that I would really like to hang my hat on.
It's interesting, though, to look back at some of these guys, and even Mike Gillis, I think, is another one that, like, thrown in, he didn't really have any sort of prior experience in the front office to base things on. But he's the type of guy, I liked his outside-the-box thinking.
Of course.
The sleep doctor and all that stuff, but as, like, an assistant general manager, like, he should have been running all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then learning from someone a little more experienced.
So basically what you guys are saying, in the last 10 years, the Canucks have had some great assistant general managers leading their
coaches.
team.
Take the last two general managers and combine them into one Frankenstein, or just have them work together. That's something right there.
I don't think this is that uncommon, though, when you look at management and coaching in professional sports, where in hindsight you can go, well, this guy was really good at this and this. Like, we can't just say this guy sucks, but he maybe was lacking in this and this.
Exactly.
And the best coaches and general managers have a certain skill set, at least among the possibilities that you can get.
Right.
And you have to let a guy or see a guy in action, at least from the fan perspective or even the media perspective, because we don't get to see them in the office, whereas other people should be able to judge maybe what that skill set is a little more accurately than we do, just sort of speculating like this. So,
and it doesn't come out. You don't learn about these people until they've left or they've left the role, and then you learn. It's like with any job.
If they make it to that level, usually they have elite skills. It's just a matter of like, what skills do they have and are they being miscast? So it's easy to say like they should have been an assistant because they were almost there but not quite, and their specialties lied in what the head honcho and not what the head honcho is supposed to have.
And Aquilini, Francesco, he was on the radio this week or last week, and he did his first interview about the Canucks in like almost 3 years.
Okay.
And they asked about his contract, and they're waiting. They're judging what happens in this next few months, which says that, his job as general manager isn't secure.
They haven't, this tandem of Lyndon Benning hasn't made the playoffs.
Yeah, they made the first year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's
Calgary series.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, I mean, if you can read between the lines and think that Jim Benning's out of a job, or you can think that maybe he has a different role.
I think it's a matter of whether they get into the playoffs or not.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, based on what he's come across, like, you don't get rid of him. Just have Trevor spin something and says, do this role.
Right.
It's beneficial for everybody.
And that's the hard thing, right? Because it's almost like you're trying to demote.
You have to
Most guys won't do that and stay with an organization, although we've seen it in Edmonton a couple of times where was Kevin Lowe running arena facilities or something?
Yeah, parking cars.
I honestly,
it's valet.
But that was like special consultant. But going from general manager to assistant GM / head scout, that's a different kind of demotion. It's just better suited for your skill set.
Well, that's the thing, right? He's pretty much sitting as high as he can go.
Yeah, and if he does do that, if he takes a demotion or a different role, then he's not on camera as much. He's not putting the Just for Men gel in his hair anymore.
GM 1A 1B.
If you could have him as a head scout, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But even then, right? That's still, it feels like a demotion.
You got to spin
and
it.
And it's probably it has nothing to. It's one thing to spin it for the public. It's another thing to spin it for the individual. Yeah. And I imagine there's a pay cut that comes with that shift in role, unless he's making the same wages.
See how many. It's probably dependent on how many goals Brock Besser scores this year, because that's his late first round pick. Right. You know what long-term GM's contract is up this summer?
Who?
Ken Holland, Detroit Red Wings. You know where Ken Holland's from?
The Lower Mainland?
Like Penticton or Vernon or something. That's where he lives.
Okay.
And that's
a pipe dream.
That's my pipe dream.
Well, think about it. He probably has real estate in Michigan where it's like free.
Well, yeah.
He owns a whole city block. There's squatters in 7 of the houses, but he owns the whole city block.
7 houses. You want me to move to Vancouver?
It used to be 9.
I imagine he'd have some sort of Washington State clause.
He's got a big old factory on the corner. Oh, these kids keep breaking in and stealing my copper wire.
Ken Holland's
I've seen documentaries about Detroit on Vice.
Yeah. Ken Holland's also moving into the small room in the palatial estate with Bo Horvat.
There's no window.
With Bo Horvat?
With Bo Horvat.
He's got what a penny pincher, eh? He's making $5.5 million a year. He's not leaving your den. Good Lord.
That is an interesting point, though, that you bring up. His contract's coming to an end. Detroit's sort of at a crossroads of sorts. Yeah. If he was going to leave,
come here.
Would he want to come live a little closer to home if he still has family in Western Canada?
Look what's here. There's it's not Detroit. He's not living off the wrong side of 8 Mile. Jim Benning is working for him.
He's not living in a red state.
He's got a regular spot on this podcast. Sorry, Dave.
Club 16 free membership. That's a $20 a month value. Come on. What more can you ask for? Oh, I guess Dave. That was Dave's.
2-bedroom condo in Yaletown.
Mark Messier wanted a 3-bedroom.
They don't make those.
Not for that price. I think we're running out of time here. We've been going for about an hour, so we'll just wrap up this week's podcast. Yeah. Dave wasn't here. He came up with that idea for the Shipachyov tribute.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So he texted me early this week, and I'm like, that's a great idea. So it's a shame he's not here this week. Again,
miss him.
Happy birthday, Dave. And we were just talking about, we were alluding to Messier, and Mike Scallon asks, Mark Messier, Shallon maybe, Mark Messier notwithstanding, has there ever been a more disappointing Canucks free agent signing than Loui Eriksson? And why did Anders Nilsson name his baby after such a disappointing hockey player? So I think we talked,
Loui bought naming rights.
He's got them. He can afford it.
He was competing with Rogers.
I'm just picturing. Oh, jeez. Loui Eriksson putting on some glasses and reaching into his back pocket, licking his fingers and counting out $100 bills. What's it gonna take to make this child Loui Nilsson?
I can't buy the baby. I want to name the baby.
Okay, here you go. $20,000. Now, can we name him Loui Eriksson Nilsson? How many more is that gonna cost? What? Okay.
Anders Nilsson's only making $2 million a year. He's like, well, how about 30?
Babies are expensive, man. I hear.
We had a fun podcast this week. Handful of stuff we didn't talk about. We had a lot of fun. So,
sorry, Pittsburgh Penguins.
What was it the most disappointing
podcast?
Their season's pretty disappointing.
The most disappointing, based on term and value and what you're getting out of it, I would say yes.
We'll have to see what Eriksson does, but yeah, I mean, if he were to continue at this pace of points.
Sorry, what is this? Matt Duchene quit in debut game. Sounds like he cuts out mid-game, and this is a thing with him.
Why did I write Matt Duchene quit and Dave? I don't know why I wrote that.
That just caught my eye. I'm like, we didn't discuss this. Did he just storm off and demand a trade?
Yeah, sorry.
Sounds like a Matt Duchene thing to do.
For those listening, wondering what's going on, I make a cheat sheet and a rundown, which you can get on our Patreon every week. And I wrote, for some reason, I typed out Matt Duchene quit in debut games with Ottawa in Sweden. So he didn't quit. He has not quit the team. Okay. He hasn't gotten into a cab from Stockholm to go to Boston or something. But I didn't notice I wrote that, and I think that's pretty funny. We'll wrap up the podcast there.
We still haven't answered the man's question.
Is he the worst?
No.
Yes, I say yes.
Oh.
I want to review the list. I also want to say, as much as I've probably complained about Mark Messier on the podcast in his Vancouver years, statistically, I mean, he maybe wasn't worth $6 million prorated for the era, but he got points. It was all the other stuff.
That's exactly
that was what the cost was.
We don't remember any of the points he put up because of all the evil.
Well, if you think about it, if you think of the bad contracts, if you think of the bad contracts that they use their compliance buyouts for after the lockout.
When I was 14, that was the worst contract ever.
Well, the ones they used recently was for David Booth and for Keith Ballard, I believe.
Yeah.
And those were Keith Ballard was a UFA. But
but Keith Ballard and David Booth then dispatched Trevor Linden to the Carolinas.
Yeah, so I think it's Messier and Eriksson for the front running.
Long Island.
I know it was New York. it was McLean and
Jelena.
Tell you what, we'll do some research over the week and we'll come up with our answers. And if it's not Loui Eriksson, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah. I'm hoping Loui can turn it around. Not even worth $6 million. Just
it's not
be a contributing skating hard.
No.
Just skate fast.
Just try your best.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
That'll wrap it up for this week's podcast.
Bryant Reeves.
You're comparing Loui Eriksson to Bryant Reeves?
Everyone hated Bryant Reeves when he signed that $10 million a year contract, and I was like...
Yeah, because he was 500 pounds.
Louis's got to get fat.
The team stuck the contract in front of the man. He's not going to sign it. Anyway, Bryant Reeves was actually pretty good if you played him as a sixth man. I'll just say that much. Coming off the bench, good backup center, could even play small forward, could shoot from the outside.
Small forward. forward.
A large small forward.
Make
Small
sure
forward's a position in basketball.
We're wrapping up this podcast on that note. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksNetCA or PucksNetCa.
Oh, God!
And if you want to support the show monetarily and you want to hear us do 5 minutes for paying, which should be pretty funny because we're having a lot of fun right now, you can head over to patreon.com, and every week for our $5 or more backers, you can hear us do a bonus segment, and we do a bonus episode every week. It's patreon.com/pucksonnet. You can throw a couple of bucks that way. And if you don't want to support the show with cash, cold, hard, dirty Loui Eriksson money...
Ooh.
Like, you don't want to, like, you're not...
He's definitely not donating to the podcast after this episode.
He can afford
he could rename the podcast if he
wanted to. If Puck's on Loui or Loui Eriksson's on net, I mean...
Welcome to Loui Eriksson's Pucks on Net. He didn't get any last night, but this podcast makes up for that.
So, Loui, if you're listening...
First segment is just how great Loui Eriksson is.
Open up your heart and your wallet, and we will rename the podcast after you.
Yeah, just reach into your couch cushions and find 40 or 50 grand in American currency.
Puts on his glasses, starts licking those fingers again.
This low rent podcast, I could do a thing with this. Wayne's World, brought to you by Noah's Arcade. If you don't want to be like Loui Eriksson and you want to support the show, head on over to iTunes, rate and review the show. Nobody's done a little bit, and we haven't checked the American one in a while. But if you can, go to the iTunes. If you're on Apple iTunes, go to your podcast app. Search for us in the store. Go to the actual store. Write a review, 5 stars, and write something nice. Or you can give us 5 stars and say how stupid we are, whatever you want, something negative. But just leave that review because of the horrible Steve Jobs algorithm. And we're also on just about wherever you can get podcasts from. Go like the Facebook page. Go to that. No, we don't put anything there.
Tweet at PucksOnDave. Wish him a happy birthday.
Yeah, and just tweet PucksOnNetCA what you thought of the show this week or any week. It's always fun to hear from you.
Tell us what you thought of Yuri Geeta. I mean, Shipachyov.
And on that note, we'll go to 5 minutes for paying.